Narcissists only see people as objects. We see you as appliances, and your role is to be controlled, to provide us with that life-affirming fuel that we need, to supply us with character traits and residual benefits. Our friendship with you is purely based on what you can do for us. Having a romantic relationship with you is based upon what you can provide to us. Working alongside you is based upon, you've guessed it, what you can do for us. You are little different to a television set, a toaster, or a washing machine. We expect you to do what we require when we want you to do it, and without complication. Should you cause complication by not doing what we require, challenging us in some way, questioning us in some form, then of course you are a terrible appliance, a naughty appliance, a malfunctioning appliance. And you must be punished for it. You must be put to one side. You must be reprimanded, i.e. devalued. The appliances that come into our fuel matrix are relied upon to differing extents and degrees. Some we deal with repeatedly and often, others completely infrequently. Others may have a flurry of activity, then nothing for months, and then a flurry of activity again for weeks, and then nothing. This shows the differing dynamics that occur between the narcissist and our victims. But also, anybody that is in that fuel matrix can be disengaged from or plonked on the shelf and left there. Nobody's immune from it, and it can happen like that. The reason being is that we attach you to us. We are not attached to you. We have no emotional investment in you. You're emotionally invested in us. That's why it hurts so much when we mistreat you, when we dump you, when we push you to one side, when you don't hear from us, when we ghost you. We have no involvement in you in that way because our narcissism ensures that there is no such attachment, which basically keeps us mobile, flight of foot, so that we can then remove ourselves in the twinkling of an eye and move on elsewhere. It also means that you are always at risk, and the extent of the risk, of course, varies, but there's always a risk that you'll be plonked on the shelf and left there, or that you'll be disengaged from. Nobody is completely protected from that. The fact that you have always been loyal to us, that you have been supportive, that you've provided us with lots of fuel, that you have provided us with character traits and residual benefits in the various forms that they come, is still no guarantee that we will keep you around and treat you well. The fact is that you will inadvertently do something which may well offend our sense of control, and thus you will be devalued. That doesn't mean that you're going to be kicked to the curb, but where you're the primary source of some shape or form, that risks increase, and it also occurs with secondary sources too. Simply put, anybody can be disengaged from. It's more likely to occur with the primary source, but ultimately anybody can be disengaged from. We have no object constancy. We don't, for instance, think to ourselves, although this person has really annoyed me, they've generally been good to us, and they've always remembered my birthday, for instance. They've always been helpful, so I'll give them a pass this time. It doesn't work like that. We don't look at it in the round or in the aggregate. What we do is we look at what's happening in the now. And the fact that you've forgotten our birthday makes you an awful, treacherous, disgusting friend. In fact, we can't call you a friend any longer because a real friend wouldn't behave that way. It doesn't matter that you remembered the 19 birthdays before that. That goes out of the window. And if you plead your case to say, but I've remembered every single one of your birthdays beforehand, you'll be met with, so what? I'm not talking about those birthdays, I'm talking about this one. You missed this one. That's why I'm so upset with you. I can't believe that you've missed my birthday. Whatever you might protest about remembering the others, you might as well be pissing into the wind for all the good that it will do you. And Harry's wife, of course, is no different. As a narcissist, we have seen the repeated ways by which she is disengaged from primary sources, Corey the chef, Trevor Engelson being two notable examples, and of course the various friends who suddenly found themselves left on the shelf, the childhood friends, for instance, Ninaki Priddy, and members of her family. Her father has been disengaged from, her two half-siblings have been disengaged from. Shelving is ordinarily what happens with secondary sources, but in certain instances disengagement can occur, and that is what has happened for the Markle members of the family as a consequence of Harry's wife's treatment. So far, Doria appeared to have escaped unscathed in that regard. As a non-intimate secondary source, she was frequently called upon by Harry's wife, taken off the shelf, and utilised. She is easy enough to control, she provides fuel to her daughter, she provides residual benefits in terms of looking after the children to the extent that you believe that they exist, assisting with the management of the facade, and quite possibly being complicit with regard to other matters that Harry's wife needs her assistance in, thus affording her the status of a lieutenant. But notwithstanding that, it would appear that even Doria is not immune from this, as I've explained, that nobody is. In an article by something called The Things, an article by Val Baroni tells us, did Harry's wife get tired of having her mum live with her and Harry? Ever since the royal wedding in 2018, Prince Harry, intimate partner primary source, and Harry's wife, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, have become the most popular members of the royal family. I'm not sure where you get that from, because that's utter rubbish. Some people love them, and some dislike them, but they have been making headlines for years, especially since they stepped down from their roles and moved out of the United Kingdom. The press and some of the public have not been kind to them after that. When going through tough times, it's important to have good people in your corner, and Harry's wife and Harry were lucky to have Doria Ragland, Harry's wife's mother, supporting them. But ever since it became public that Harry's wife is in no contact with her father, people started wondering what their relationship with the prince's mother-in-law is like now. Interesting choice of words to suggest that Harry's wife is in no contact with her father. It almost makes it sound as if she believes that he is also a narcissist and therefore she should have nothing to do with him. Of course, it's entirely conceivable that somebody like Harry's wife would label her father a narcissist, and in this case accurately so, not because she has any skill in identifying narcissists, but rather his conduct is such that she is likely to see him that way in order to label him as a problem and therefore nullify the threat to control by saying, well, he's done this, and he's a narcissist, and therefore I need to go no contact with him. The article continues. Harry's wife's childhood was peculiar, but then again her own life seems to be that way. She went from an awkward child to a famous actress. Not really that, was it, but still. To marrying a prince and becoming a duchess. Of course, going through so many changes makes it difficult to define one's identity in lots of ways. But thankfully, she was raised by two people who made sure she grew up with a strong sense of self despite the challenges she faced. In actual fact, they did entirely the opposite. She has no sense of self as a consequence of the absence of her narcissist mother and the mollycoddling of her narcissist father. Her parents, Doria Ragland and Thomas Markle, got divorced when she was 6. That will have contributed to a lack of control environment. But she remained close to both of them. No, she hasn't, and is deeply grateful for everything they did for her. That would be facade management. She isn't grateful in the slightest because she doesn't know how to be, because of course from her perspective, they should do everything for her. Being the daughter of a black mother and a white father in the 80s and 90s was not always easy, and there were many times when she felt she didn't know who she was. An example she gave was when she was asked to tick a box in a census she had to complete in school, and she was told to mark that she was white because that's what she looked like, which is accurate, so I'm not sure what the complaint is there. She didn't, and when she told her parents about it, her father told her something she still remembers to this day: if that happens again, you draw your own box. That may not have actually occurred and is a revision of history. She stated, I was too young at the time to know what it was like for my parents, but I can tell you what it was like for me, how they crafted the world around me to make me feel like I wasn't different but special. Certainly her father did that, and that belief that she was special has manifested, for instance, in the video of a friend's birthday party where she takes the girl's crown and bosses everybody around. Doria Ragland has always lived in Los Angeles, so when Prince Harry and Harry's wife's first child, Archie, was born, She couldn't be there full time. The royal couple was living in the United Kingdom at the time, but that didn't stop the grandmother to do her very best to be there for her daughter and new grandson. The family said that she was a big help to get them to them as they got used to the monumental change that having a baby entailed. But once the relationship between the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and the rest of the royal family soured, the couple left the United Kingdom, assertion of control by withdrawal. Doria moved in with them for a while. Now, of course, here, remember, Doria's a narcissist and so's Harry's wife. So Doria gets the residual benefit of having somewhere to live, on the basis, of course, of providing childcare to Archie. She helped out with their new parental duties, but also to keep them company and to be there for her daughter. Provision of fuel, who, as most probably know, had a rough time as a senior royal. Doria Raglan continues to live with Harry's wife, Harry and Archie, residual benefit, a source shared when Harry and Harry's wife established themselves in Los Angeles. This has been the most time she's spent with her grandson since he was born. Doria reportedly loved her time living with them and did her best to make their lives easier, in addition to bonding with her grandson. She would read to him every morning, assertion of control through benign act over a non-intimate secondary source, and she and Harry's wife would spend time together cooking completely organic meals for Archie, or at least that's what's portrayed, facade management. When she became engaged to the prince, Harry's wife was asked to name some of the women who inspired her the most. Her mum, of course, made the list, not only for her accomplishments, but for the fact that their relationship enriched her life. We can just have so much fun together, and yet I still find so much solace in her support, she said. That duality coexists the same way it would in a best friend. Flattery, assertion of control. That alone explains why she had wanted her mum to live with them when she started the exciting but scary journey of motherhood. Everything, of course, with Harry's wife is a journey because of her grandiosity. When Archie was a little older and Harry's wife were more settled in their new life, Doria gradually stepped down from her full-time grandma duties, though she never stopped being involved in their lives. Although every relationship, especially family, has its ups and downs, it seems that Harry's wife and Doria have always had a good relationship. Really? They've really always had a good relationship? What about the years when she disappeared? Of course, this PR puff piece is to make it seem like everything is hunky-dory there. The Duchess clarified in October 2022 during an episode of her podcast, Arsey Wipes, that her mother lives in a different part of town now, but they visit each other regularly. Doria lives in View Park, Windsor Hills, a neighbourhood of Los Angeles, in a house she inherited from her father. It might not be as big as the mansion where Harry and Harry's wife are raising Archie and Lilibet, but it's still pretty comfortable and worthy of the mother of a duchess. Now, of course, this is a PR puff piece to make it seem like all is hunky-dory between them. But it posed the question, did Harry's wife get tired of having her mum live with her and Harry? And in effect, the answer to that is yes. You see, as a typical narcissist, what she'll have done is utilise her mother to provide childcare services and manage that facade, and then when it's deemed appropriate by her, and purely by her, it's time for her to go. Now, of course, that is a threat to the control of Doria, but ultimately she may well have been able to assert control by basically thinking, well, I want out of there and I don't want to have to be wiping shitty bottoms and feeding children, etc., so suits me also. And therefore the decision to get rid of her, which of course comes from Harry's wife as her means of assertion of control, and basically because she deems that Doria isn't really of any use to her, she then decides, you're out. Doria doesn't fight it because it suits her purposes also, even though it is a threat to control. She can accept that threat to control in circumstances where it would be deemed suitable to her also. Therefore, there's no great big fight about it. Of course, there is the possibility that it did kick off, that she suggested that she leave and Doria didn't want to go because it was deemed a threat to control. We don't have the detail, but the point is this. Where two narcissists interact as these two have done, understand that Harry's wife, as soon as she deems that it's not appropriate any longer, shumph, you're out. I want you gone. Doria may accept that, assertion of control by agreement, or she may fight against it, but ultimately would end up having to withdraw because the home belongs to Harry's wife. The fact is, Harry's wife would show no emotional empathy for her mother and has simply used her. In her world, of course, it's done under the auspices of spending time with the grandchild, with the grandchildren. But in actual fact, she simply used her, because of course, everything that a narcissist does when it comes to another person, another interaction with a human being, the narcissist always uses that individual, even if their narcissism blinds them to the fact that that is what they are doing. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.